Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Tuesday morning mortgage coach interview. Uh, for over 7 years now, we've been doing these calls every Tuesday, 9 o'clock Pacific. We've interviewed over 400 loan officers, top producers, regional leaders, and tons of authors. So this next Tuesday, literally next week, August 4th, I'm going to be interviewing Ken DeLeon, the #1 realtor in America. I do believe he has, earned that title for 3 years now, and just, an amazing human being and an amazing real estate professional. So for all you mortgage coaches on this call, I highly recommend that you invite realtors to that. It will be a great opportunity for you to partner, for you to learn, for them to learn, and for you guys to learn together. So, this month, July, has been just a fantastic month of leadership. We had Simon Sinek. I'm going to talk about that. We started the call with Scott Cummings, a top performer out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. I then brought in an author to talk about emotional intelligence, Coach Bill Hart. Last week's call, if you did not watch that, the recording is available, and we really talked about the why and how to leverage mortgage coach videos. Although Bill kicked off the talk with a TED Talk, about a 15-minute TED Talk around old school. So really unique call, very important to check it out. So this week I have Craig Strent. Craig, welcome to the Mortgage Coach Call. I'm excited to have you today.
Thanks, Dave. Nice to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm going to more formally introduce Craig and tell his story in just a minute. Craig, feel free to add any color to some of the opening comments and be ready to come in about 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay.
All right, so I just want to remind everybody, last Wednesday we did a special call with Simon Sinek. That was recorded, that was uploaded. I think it's been watched over 400 times now. So we haven't even started promoting it, and it's trending to be the most watched video or recording of any of our calls. My take on this is it's just something it's core to being a mortgage coach, core to being a mortgage professional. Simon did a great job of really tailoring the conversation he had with us to the mortgage community. My favorite quote, probably not a surprise to anybody, this would be my favorite one, but he was, sharing what he thought, great salespeople do, what great servant leaders do. And after he knew a little bit more about Mortgage Coach, he made the comment that if I would have known about Mortgage Coach, I would have asked my loan officer if he used Mortgage Coach, and it might have been a deal breaker if he didn't. Now, again, he also told a story around how the loan officer he used got him a great rate. He's confident that it was one of the best rates in the market, but he would never use that loan officer again, and he explained why he wouldn't use it. So if you didn't watch this video, make sure that you do. Everybody on this call, we all align around some common principles that we want to help people make good mortgage decisions. Everybody on this call, whether you're executing it with every client, you believe in delivering comparisons, you believe in showing the cost over time, which, reminder to everybody, it's going to become a requirement in a couple months, a matter of weeks at this point. Hopefully everybody on this call believes that we want to help families pay off their debt faster, whether that's through savings. Everybody on this call believes in leveraging technology. Craig is going to share how he uses video and how he uses Mortgage Coach Edge to get more business and to deliver more value to the families that are referred by financial planners. Hopefully everybody who's attending this call, you're using Mortgage Coach Mobile in a very strategic way. And hopefully you're delivering Mortgage Coach with videos to the families. So again, reminder to download this. We'll put a link to it. I also want to thank Jacob and our support team. They edited this, and there was a 10-minute segment that I thought really nailed the essence of this call for a mortgage coach or for a mortgage professional. So while the call itself was 41 minutes long, we are editing a 10-minute session that I just think should be played at every sales meeting, shared with every loan officer, and we'll put a link to that in the chat for today's call. So that's coming within minutes. So another one of my favorite quotes from the Simon Sinek interview is this quote. He said, where how you do anything is how you do everything. And today's guest it's very near and dear to my heart because he's been a Mortgage Coach member and leader for many years, I think over 10 years. Craig, I forgot to ask you. By the way, Craig, do you remember when you started using Mortgage Coach?
At the beginning, right when you put it out.
So, I mean, we're talking 15 years. And he's one of those members where every time I see him, he says, thank you. He tells me a success story, and he gives a great idea, or, hey, my team has an idea for you. So to me, that's the best kind of Mortgage Coach member, someone that uses it, gets value from it, and helps make you better. So, Craig, thank you for that. Before I bring Craig in, I want to remind everybody that this is the backstory to Mortgage Coach. I mean, my backstory when I created Mortgage Coach was I was a successful loan officer who exclusively focused on getting business from CPAs and financial planners. Some of you may have read this 26-page, I don't know if you want to call it a book, if you want to call it a white paper, call it what you want, but it was how I ran my business. Before I bring Craig in, I want to know on this call how many of you or how many referrals are you getting from CPAs and financial planners right now? So if you're on this call, let us know if you're getting 0, if you're getting a few, if you're getting a lot, 20 plus. This will help Craig and I, as we have this conversation, speak to you more directly. So again, 36% of you have voted. The question is, how many referrals do you get from advisors annually? Again, an advisor is a CPA, it's a financial planner. It is not a realtor. It is not just a past client. It's someone that delivers financial advice for a living to families. How many referrals are you getting annually? So Craig, by the way, seeing this poll question up, any guesses on how it's gonna pan out?
I'd say most people, I mean, there's going to be, as you say, maybe a third of the people are getting 0, which is why they're kind of listening in, and there'll be a small population of 20 plus, and the rest probably somewhere between 4 and 10.
Well, here we go. 62% voted. You nailed it. 35% are 0. 36% are a few. Very small percent, 20 plus. But folks, I mean, 20 plus is very realistic. Craig, how many are you getting? How would you have answered this question?
If I include advisors and then, past clients who originally came from their advisors, for me, I'm going to probably just over about 100 a year.
So we're talking a lot. So by the way, there are the results. I thought I pushed those to everybody, but here you go. There's a quick shot at how everybody voted on that. So again, my goal in this call is to make the case that you should have a strategy. I don't think 0 is good. I think that whether or not you want to have 20 plus and you really want to make it a business pillar, I'll leave that to you. I'm not going to spend a lot on my story and how I did it, although I do want to get everybody on this call to read The Art of Referral, something that I wrote over 15 years ago, and it was part of how we started Mortgage Coach. So, I mean, this was my process. This was my value proposition 15 plus years ago. I mean, 20 years ago. I mean, I've been in this business now for 27 years, and I think it took me about 3 years to come up with this as my value prop. This was the conversation I had with borrowers. My advice makes a difference. I'll manage your mortgage year after year, month after month, day after day. Let me show you. And that was the birth of Mortgage Coach. And when I met with an advisor, my advice delivers obvious value to their clients and helps them grow your practice by making clients more loyal and better investors to you. Let me show you. And again, this is pretty dated, but it was all about, hey, average loan officer, it's got the HB12C, yellow sheet of paper, Mortgage Coach loan officer is delivering mortgage plans. So this is our backstory. This is a great strategy, and with that said and that setup, Craig, I'm looking forward to hearing what you're doing, how you're doing it. If you could tell a little bit about your mortgage practice, so everybody kind of knows where you're at. I know you also are the CEO and leader of a company, so just give us a little flavor for your day-to-day and your business practice.
Sure. I started in subprime in 1994, by the way, way back when, and then started my own company in 1998, which is the company we have today. And after a couple of years, I just decided that there had to be a better way, and I read some articles, including your stuff, Dave, as I mentioned earlier, and I kept on going to as many seminars as I can. I went to all the mom seminars, read every magazine, all the technical stuff, and decided that advisors were just a better way to go. And so while that's become my niche over the years, I would say to the other loan officers out there, it doesn't have to be your only thing. It doesn't have to be your niche or specialty, but there is a lot of business to be had there. So if you feel that you're constantly calling realtors and pounding the phone and doing your 20 calls a day and all those things, and that's kind of just, it's getting tough and it gets a little old, and you want to kind of add to that mix, then consider moving into the advisor field. I would absolutely still maintain and go after your realtor base if that's working for you, and your database and all that. Just consider this as another source of business that might be a lot more rewarding for you in terms of how you talk to people, including borrowers and referral sources, and how you spend your day and the enjoyment you get out of it. It's also, people don't talk about referral sources being quality of life decisions, but a quality of life decision for me is dealing with financial advisors primarily over other sources of business. There's a real appreciation and a respect for what you do as a mortgage person when you deal with the financial advisor community, and that's very rewarding in terms of the day. So that's why I've chosen this source and why I've really pursued it over the course of time. In terms of, Dave, you asked me how I spend my day right now. A good portion of it is origination and presentation to customers, and a good portion of it is training and mentoring and creating marketing pieces on behalf of my company.
Love it. So just give us a feeling for what kind of production levels your team is doing, not your company.
Sure.
Mortgage practice you're going to share a strategy and an approach. We want to know what kind of business is coming out of that.
Sure. In terms of volume levels, as I shared with you, I've been over $100 million a number of years in my career. This year to date, I'm about $48 million. I expect to finish around 75 to 80. Last year, I was in the mid-60s for volume. So it just gives you a sense of total loan volume that I'm doing, in addition to my other responsibilities.
Good. Well, let's try to make sure we net out over the next 45, 50 minutes why financial planners, how, and what exactly you're doing to get their business. I know part of what led to this call was you presented at the Mortgage Mastermind event. I think you had Tim Brahim, your coach, as part of that conversation, and I was just like, this would be a great message I want to bring back to the mortgage coach community. So let's get into a different way that you do it and how you focus. So I'll let you kind of drive the conversation at this point, whether you want to start with why or whether you want to start with what.
Yeah, I mean, starting with why, I think is definitely the right place. Why advisors? And I think there's a number of reasons. I mean, first of all, advisors manage assets. That's what they do. A lot of times advisors say that they use words like holistic, or they manage the financial plan. But what they really do for the most part is they manage assets, and that's only one side of the balance sheet. And most advisors don't really manage liabilities at all. They don't know a whole lot on the liability side about the mortgage and structuring and how it works into the plan and those types of things. There are certainly a population that do, but for the most part, they don't. And what you do is, as a mortgage person, I shouldn't say you, what we do as mortgage people is we really manage liabilities. And I got that term from Dave years ago, that we're essentially liability managers in what we do. And we talk about mortgages under management. I'll kind of get to that and unpack the concept a little more. But our client's number one liability is usually their mortgage. So wouldn't it make sense that an advisor that puts themselves out there as being full service would manage both sides of the balance sheet? I mean, how could they ignore their client's largest liabilities? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So my mortgage practice is set up essentially as mortgages under management, which is really complementary to financial advisors who basically spend their day working with the assets that are under management. So it mimics the relationship approach that advisors take rather than the transactional approach that most mortgage people use. So I've kind of adopted their own model of this ongoing management of a client's liabilities where they have ongoing management of a client's assets. So I've adopted that to the mortgage plan. What I have found in approaching advisors over the last 15 years is that they have tremendous respect for what mortgage people do when they're knowledgeable and can show them ways to use the mortgage to help leverage the financial plan of the client to help create and preserve assets, and I'll show you some ways we do that. The approach to advisors is that they're the quarterback of the financial plan. They view themselves as in charge, and they're smart enough to know that they need to bring in experts in related fields so they can properly advise their clients and add value. That's why most advisors, if you ask them, they have a CPA that they know and recommend. They have an estate planning attorney that they know and recommend. Most of them don't have a mortgage person that they recommend. Notice I didn't say that they know, because a lot of them know mortgage people and don't recommend them. And if you poll most advisors, they'll tell you that they've been burned here or there by a mortgage person that may or may not have done a great job or delivered a great client experience to their clients. So, but they know that they need a liability manager as part of the team, and that's really where you come in. So that's why it makes sense for financial advisors to partner with us, why they need us, and how we can help. The difference with advisors in comparing to other sources I've found is that they run their businesses like businesses. They're much more like us in how they operate. They typically are college grads. Many times they have advanced degrees or certifications. They're highly regulated. They work full-time just like us. This is not a hobby for them. They're not doing it on the side. It's not part-time. They really take pride in what they do. The other benefit as to going why to go after advisors is just ease. I mean, it's more of a low-hanging fruit concept in that they're not harassed, meaning other loan officers are not calling on them all day. You know, if you go after realtors, and again, realtors are a very good source to go after and develop relationships with long-term, but they're harder to get to. They're called by loan officers all day. They're very skeptical. They don't really think that, you know, a loan officer may have something that separates them out. It's harder for them to accept and acknowledge their value prop. And most loan officers don't call advisors at all. And the reason they don't call advisors that I have found is that typically they are afraid. And not afraid in a bad way, but afraid in that they don't know what to say or what to do when going after an advisor, unlike when they go after a realtor. So this is just a training issue, and Mortgage Coach really comes into play in helping you get comfortable with that. But my theory has basically become, and was from the beginning, go where other loan officers are not. And I have found that that really works well. Financial advisors, divorce lawyers, CPAs, estate planning attorneys, mediators, all these other types of practices where loan officers are needed regularly, but you just might not find a whole lot of them hanging out. So that's worked really well. In terms of why advisors are going to be receptive, essentially we make them really look good, and we add a lot of value to their practice if we do our job right. So once we can demonstrate that on a case with them, then they're going to continue to refer to us. They appreciate the value that we're going to bring, and as a result, they're going to bring us in. Also have to remember how financial advisors are compensated. So realtors are compensated by transaction. They want you to get the loan to closing quickly as you can. Everybody gets their commission. Understood. Advisors are generally compensated by the amount of assets they have under management. So they typically get a percentage for what they're managing. Some are fee-based, and there's all kinds of setups, but the most common you'll see is that they get paid for assets they're managing. So then by definition, they want to do two things. One, they want to create additional assets for their clients to invest and for them to manage, as that will increase the asset base and the percentage comp that they get. And two, they want to preserve existing assets under management so that they don't have a drop in the fee that they're getting paid on there. So when you do things like show a 30 versus 15 scenario to them, whereas the 30 might be a lower payment and the client can invest the difference and still get to a freedom point, a point in which they could pay off the loan in full at a more expedited pace in the 15-year and continue to grow those assets over time, and why that might be better, they're going to be interested. If you can show them how a client can consolidate debt and free up cash flow and redirect that cash flow to fund college savings or to buy the whole life policy they want to buy versus the term policy that they can only afford, they're going to be interested. If you could show them ways where they don't have to put 50% down to buy the next house, but instead could put 20% down and invest the difference and grow that money at a greater rate of return than the amortization on the mortgage, they're going to be interested. So when you can show them why it makes more sense to invest the money, third-party validation for their clients, they're gonna listen to you. And you've got to have the right presentation tools to do that, and that's where Mortgage Coach really comes in. So, Dave, that's the end of that first slide. I know that was a lot.
Yeah, no problem. It was you made a great case. I want to just add a little bit to it. So for a third of you, and probably over half of you, 80% of you, your main referral partner is a real estate agent. So while how big do you make this pillar? That depends on a lot of things. But to only be getting less than a half a dozen referrals for financial planners a year is just a huge missed opportunity. And I would make the case, not only are you just leaving lots of opportunity out, your mortgage practice will be better if you have these CPAs and financial planners. You have built strategic relationships to them. It'll help you be a better mortgage professional to the realtors that you serve. It'll help you sharpen how you deliver advice to families. And of course, the business itself. I mean, think of every person that's being referred by a realtor. Not all of them have CPAs and financial planners, but a number of them do. So just you deciding that you're going to make this a focus, I'm going to make sure that I am maximizing this opportunity. I'm going to add to my questions, who's your CPA, who's your financial planner. You're going to be thoughtful, and you're going to go out there and build strategic relationships. It's just going to make you better at your core business pillar of serving realtors. So I just wanted to add that as another why, all the whys that you said, and there's another why. It'll just make you better at serving the realtors that are the core pillar partner that you have today. So, Craig, anything else on why before we get into how?
I'll come back to the lifestyle piece earlier, but it really is a quality of life decision as well, and I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end.
All right. Well, good. Well, let's get into how to go out and approach this.
Sure. So looking at how here, the first is to learn the language, and I said in the previous slide, a lot of loan officers might be afraid to go after advisors. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's really nothing. It's easier than learning guidelines, I could tell you that, and it's more interesting in a lot of cases. But it's about learning the language. So just the basics, what does it mean when somebody talks about portfolio rebalancing, or what does it mean when someone says asset diversification, and what is the velocity of money, and how does that work? And so just some really basic concepts that you'll just need to understand. This is really just basic financial planning. So you want to learn the language a little bit. You may want to learn a little bit about how advisors are compensated. And I'm telling you, you go online, you can Google this, you're going to get a million articles that you could read on the different ways that a financial advisor is compensated. In this way, you'll have some questions to ask. Interview advisors, read some industry articles. Very simple to do this. There's a CFP has a magazine they put out every month. You could subscribe to that if you want. It'll give you a lot of the details. Obtain a designation. There are some designations out there that will help you with this that I think would be good to have, and that really just goes back to knowledge. Knowledge base is important. Warm referrals from borrowers in your network. So you feel comfortable going to talk to some advisors now. You want to give this a try. You want to stick your toe in the water. How should you go about it? Well, a lot of people know over the years about page 5 of the application and asking people who their advisors are and all that. It's a very simple way to do things. On every transaction, you've probably heard this from other mortgage people, but simply say to the customer or the client on every single transaction, do you have a financial advisor? And if the answer is yes, ask them if they would consider connecting you with that financial advisor. Let them know you're expanding your practice to include financial advisors and some services that you've developed for that community, and you'd really like to be introduced and to meet with some advisors. Would they be kind enough to introduce you by email to their advisor? And if they've had a good mortgage experience with you, I would ask them this, by the way, towards the end. If they've had a good mortgage experience with you, they're going to say yes. And a good best practice for that would be to have them do it by email. Is a good way to do it. This way they can endorse you on the email, and you're all three on there, and you could take it from there. And I could tell you that if the client who has their money with the advisor and they're paying that advisor for their services, and they introduce you by email with an endorsement, the advisor's generally not going to blow you off. They're going to see that it came from their client, that their client wants them to meet with you, and they're going to take that initial meeting. So you really don't need to cold call advisors. It's not necessary. The way I started, just on a side note, is I went to a personal financial planning conference that the Washington Post was putting on here in my market, and I just walked around the room in kind of a big exposition hall and started talking to the advisor, giving out my cards, and I got some appointments that way. You don't have to do that. This other way I'm telling you about is a whole lot easier, and it will work. So warm referrals from borrowers in your network. And by the way, if they're not working with an advisor and you've already met with some, you're now in a really good position to say to them, the mortgage is a big piece of your financial plan. You've just gone through the mortgage with me. I've got some advisors that I work with and recommend. They're certainly willing to offer a free consultation. Would you like me to set that up for you? So now you've already found a way to quickly turn around and refer some deals to these new advisors that you met with where appropriate. So warm referrals from borrowers and your network. For those of you that do annual reviews, I find tremendous value in doing annual reviews. If you're doing them, this is a good question to ask during an annual review. Do they have an advisor that they recommend? And if so, would they be willing to connect you with them? Then moving down on the how here, in-person meetings with case studies. This is a big one. So when you go to the meeting, this is really the deal breaker. You've got to be prepared. I use a presentation book. I'm kind of old school that way. I'm sure Dave would tell me to use an iPad and bring all my Edge stuff. What I do is I print out my mortgage coach stuff and all my Edge stuff and my case studies and all those things, and I bring them in my presentation book. I do know loan officers that do this on an iPad and show them Edge right there and all that. I think that's really an awesome way to do it. I'm a little more old school in how I do it. There's some really great case studies available through Mortgage Coach that you can bring on these things, and you want to really demonstrate in that first meeting some examples using Edge of why the 30 versus 15, the 30 might be better, why putting less down and investing the difference might be better, how you can do a debt consolidation and free up cash flow and build assets. So that's what you do in the meeting. Don't go to the meeting and tell them why you're great and they should refer business to you and how your service is great and your rates are low. I wouldn't cover rates at all. Obviously, service and customer experience is important. I would focus on showing them mortgage-related case studies that were things that affected the financial plan. And those case studies should have the theme of helping to create and preserve assets. And that will resonate with the advisors tremendously. Follow-up is very important after the meetings. Mail mortgage-specific items of a technical nature, whatever you got in your database, whatever your CRM is, an article on credit scoring, an article on how gifts work, and all that kind of stuff. Any mortgage-related things, updates on guidelines, but ideally it's something specific to mortgages and financial planning or how the mortgage should fit into the plan. So stay in touch by using some mailings. I'm a big believer in regular mail. Everybody emails all day long these days. Very few people get regular mail anymore, so if you can send your newsletter or whatever your piece is that way with a nice presentation, I find that to be more effective to advisors. If something physical, they could take it home and read it. And then finally, teaching classes and provided CFP credits. Once you get really comfortable with this, you can get presentations approved, and you could teach classes to certified financial planners, which is what I do. It's very effective to sell to a group. So rather than do one-on-one meetings with advisors, if I can get 10 of them in a room every month and teach them some things on mortgage concepts, it works. You don't need to do this with CFP credits at all. For many, many years, I just had success with individual advisors. They would introduce me to their managers. I would offer to bring in lunch for the office, and I would go in and just do a presentation to the advisors in the office that wanted to come to the meeting, and I would show them some concepts through a PowerPoint and using Mortgage Coach examples and Edge. And those things that I used all those time doing that were almost always things I pulled out of Mortgage Coach, sample Edge reports, case studies, and things like that. That's what I would use to present to the advisors. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Dave.
Yeah. So folks, I mean, I just want to, make sure I've taken some notes. I hope you've taken some notes. I think Craig made a great, case around why. Whether or not you make this a huge pillar, I saw Tim ask a question, or no, it was Peter asked a question. How many financial plan professionals can I work with? Well, you could work with hundreds, and in the art of referral, I talked about how I worked with 200. No, I had 793 in my database, and I can't remember the exact number, although I put it in this 25-page document. I want to say it was like 100 that were partners. They had actually referred business to me. So you can work with a lot, but you know what? You can make a lot of money, and you can deliver a lot of value and service with a half a dozen, with 2 or 3. So, how many is really up to you and what your strategy is. Craig, I think you've done a nice job. One thing I'd like to do, and I know you have another slide where you're going to continue to make the case, but let's just have a dialogue real quick, because, part of, in the art of referral, I really had these 5, what I just called, I don't really know what I called them, but let's just call them, I think, key elements to being successful. First of all, you've just got to have a mindset as an advisor. So I think, you really can't be successful with this strategy if you're a transactional loan officer who is not delivering, advice, whether you're doing that with a mortgage coach or whether you're doing that with an HB12C. You've got to be an advisor, not a loan officer. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
So part of it is just, when you hear Craig, and we're going to walk through some case studies, if you are not an advisor, and when you meet with someone, they're not gaining a certain level of fiscal literacy as a result of your conversation, if you're not asking questions like, how old do you want to be when your home's paid off, and based on the loan we're getting, how old are you going to be, this is not the right strategy for you. It's not going to work. Now, in terms of who you go out, in my book, I kind of put it with sources, do Google searches. You brought up some ideas, ask who your current customers, who their CPA financial planner. I think the who really comes down to how big do you want to make this. If you want to make it big, ask everybody who it is. And if you don't, if you just want to, like, Craig, let's say someone just wanted to get 3 advisors that referred them business. Give us a 1-minute, what would you tell them? Their main business is realtors. They want to add 3 financial planners, advisors. How should they go about getting those 3?
I would call their A clients, their top promoters, those that have given them online reviews, those that might not be first-time buyers, because those people might not have a lot of assets, but clients that have been with them longer, or that they know from the 1003 have more significant assets or cash flow to manage. And I would call those clients, and I would just ask them flat out, who do you use? Why do you use them? Are you happy with them? Are you willing to introduce me to them? Would you be kind enough to introduce me to them? And I think if you do that and you call 10 of them, which would take maybe an hour or 2, you're going to get 3 introductions.
Okay, and then you want to get the meeting with the advisor. Either script out the email that would drive the meeting, or the phone call that would get the meeting. Just kind of role play that with me.
I think an email, is first of all, hey, thanks, Dave, for introducing me to your advisor, Jim. Really appreciate you connecting me with Jim. I'm looking forward to meeting with him. And then, so you take the client out of the picture there. I would send a separate email to Jim. I really enjoyed working with our mutual client, Dave. He speaks really very highly of you, and I understand you do some wonderful things in terms of the financial planning for Dave and his wife. I'd love to get together with you, as I've kind of focused my area of expertise around the concept of mortgage planning. I'd like to share some of these concepts with you, talk about how we might work together. I understand you're willing to meet, and I would give very specific things. I'm available next Tuesday at, for breakfast or lunch, next Wednesday at 10, whatever. So I'd give them very, very specific times that I could do it. I would offer to go to their office. The reason you want to do that is because you want to see if they're just by themselves or if there's 15 other advisors in there, so and how they're set up. So that's how I would script it. I would pretty much do it the same way by telephone. I also want to say, when you show up, you really gotta be impressive. Remember, these guys might put you in front of their clients who have a lot of money, so you want to be very professionally dressed. You want to be prepared. You want to be early, not on time, but a little early, and you want to be ready to go. You also want to do some research ahead of time on them. Look at their LinkedIn, go to their website, look at their bio, see where they went to school, see what their hobbies are, those types of things. So be prepared. All these little things will make a difference.
So on the GET meeting, the only thing I would add, I mean, personally, I think those first meetings, you want to go to their office. Meeting them for coffee or breakfast to me is a plan B, because you want to get in their office, you want to see what their practice is, and you want to let them know how you're valuable. You want to tell some stories, share some strategies, so that they understand within 10 to 15 minutes, gosh, I want my family, the families that, whether I'm a CPA and I do their tax planning, or whether I'm a financial planner and I manage their assets, I am doing my clients a favor to refer them to this loan officer. And while that can be done at a coffee meeting, to me it's a little longer road, and it's also less like, you have to get into that business conversation to make the case for you. I just think it's harder. So to me, again, my opinion, I know you can debate this, going to their office is plan A, meeting them for coffee or breakfast is plan B, my opinion. Greg, do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, as I said, I would definitely go to their office. You want to see what's going on there. You want to see who's there and how they're set up. And so I would absolutely rather do it that way. And advisors, by the way, are not as frantic as some other referral sources that are running around there. They're there probably at 9. They're having their coffee. Most of their stuff is not crazy time sensitive. They have this time, and they're also very used to sitting down with the client for that quiet talk, that long meeting. So this is not something that's unorthodox for them. They're not running around in their car all day. This is a normal type of meeting for them.
Good. So now let's just really touch on the WOW presentation. Again, you talked about showing case studies. I called it, story selling. And again, if you read the Art of Referral, I talked, and that, by the way, that's what gave birth to Mortgage Coach, is I wanted to be able to walk in, and within a 5-minute conversation, I wanted to tell them how I helped borrowers, and I wanted to be able to show them how what I was doing was very different than the typical and average loan officer. Now, I do advocate strongly to everybody on this call that this is a mobile conversation. Whether you have some documentation, and to Craig's point, he's been doing this for a long time. He's got a presentation book, which, by the way, I had a presentation book. But as it pertains to strategies, my case for why it should be mobile is, first of all, just going through the mobile, it's easier to understand. But my biggest case for why you should go mobile is that you are able to forward them links and stories and videos right there in the meeting. You can get them to download the app. You can forward them one of the case studies that you went through, and now they have that in their back pocket. So talk about the ultimate leave behind having your app installed on a CPA or financial planner's solution, and now when you want to follow up with them and you want to forward them a new case study, or you want to forward them a success story, or you want to loop them in when you have a client, you've trained them how to do that. You've had that conversation with the mobile device. So I just make the case that it will make the meeting better, and it will make managing the relationship and staying top of mind 3-5x better than if you don't get them to do the mobile app. So Craig, by the way, take it or leave it, but obviously continue to use your pitch book and your presentation book, but I would advocate that you kind of add the mobile piece to what you're doing. But what you're doing is working, my friend.
It's on the to-do list, Dave. All
right, good. So anything else that you want to just highlight about the presentation? They've got that. How long do you think the meeting is? And is there any scripting that you want to?
I think you have to feel out the advisor. I like to go in with with open-ended have you ever questions, like have you ever talked to a client about their mortgage and they were going to liquidate all the assets under management with you and make a large down payment when that really wasn't necessary? Oh yeah, that happens all the time. Great. Let me show you how I would handle that situation, and then you show them an edge where you show them the benefit of the smaller down payment and investing the difference. So I would go in with some things like that. Ahead of time that you can think of. You ever had a client, another one is insurance, typically a lot of advisors like to sell a whole life or a variable annuity insurance policy, but the clients only have enough for term life, and this is good if you're meeting with insurance people rather than just financial advisors. You ever had a situation where the client really wanted to buy this policy and for all these benefits, but really they could just only afford to have the term insurance? Yes, okay, well, here's a case study I did, or here's an edge report I did where we consolidated some of their other debt, we free up cash flow, and they were able to fund that policy that everybody wanted. So I would go in with some of those have you ever questions and go back through the loans you've closed over the last 6 to 12 months and look at the loans you've closed and think about what's the story behind each one of these loans? Was it somebody just trying to get into their first home, which is okay, but was there something else? What about your refis? And a lot of advisors, the refis will come into play even more so. What were some of the goals? What were some of the reasons for the refinances? And kind of draw out a story on that you could share with the advisor. So that's how I would do the approach. I would also make sure to make small promises and deliver. That's really important. It's subconscious stuff, but it really works. Tell them what you're going to do after the meeting. Don't make it something huge that's going to take a lot of time, but something small and important. Some follow-up item that you might send them or something you reference in the conversation, and then make sure you do it. That will demonstrate that you're a competent professional, and that if they send the client to you and you say you're going to follow up, that you actually do it. So very small sales skills are very critical in that. They're very concerned about their client and who they refer them to, and that person dealing with a professional. And that's really what you want to demonstrate when you go into these meetings, because you're a mortgage professional and you're good at what you do, and you want to make sure that comes across.
So a couple questions are coming in. I'm having people ask questions. Well, what about the big firms that have a mortgage arm? So one thing I want to add to that is, first of all, you also got to remember when you're coming into these meetings, it's not just like well, first of all, I think you should have this attitude with realtors, but you're there to impress them, and you're there to qualify them, based on their attitude, based off of how they run their mortgage practice. Are they people that are good referral partners? I mean, there's CPAs and financial planners, they just aren't. And so, I would just make the case that, first of all, not every CPA or financial planner is a great partner. In fact, I would make the case that the majority of them aren't. And so whether or not you go in and they spend the whole time telling you how they've got a mortgage person that they love, or they've got their company's a big company and they give all the referrals to someone, then you just kind of change your approach. You're still there to impress them and hopefully educate them on a better way that they could be serving their customers. But your goal is not to win the business of every CPA or financial planner. They're there to impress them. You're there to qualify them, and then base your follow-up afterwards. So don't worry. They're not all a fit. Let's assume 50% are not a fit, but you've got to talk to them. You've got to meet with them, and then you decide whether or not they're a fit for your mortgage practice. So, hey, Craig, I know that this came up with me a lot, and I have an answer on how I address this, but I want to hear how you're doing it today, where they say something to the effect that I'm only going to refer you business if you refer me business, or I need to make money on the mortgage. What about that financial planner that, it's not just about making sure my people have a good mortgage loan officer. It's like they want it to be a business opportunity for them. How do you address that, and how often does that come up nowadays?
Well, I think it's rare that you're going to find that somebody says they want to get paid for you doing the mortgage, some kind of kickback or whatever, not to mention RESPA issue there. If that's the case, they're not the right partner, and I would dismiss them immediately. In terms of the question about about the question one of the listeners had about what about these firms where they have internal mortgage, I would tell you that the capture rate on those is even lower than internal in real estate offices, very low. And those that have it, most of them don't use it for two reasons. One, the comp is terrible. Three reasons. The comp is terrible. Two, it takes a lot of their time. They're not experts in it. It draws them away from things. And three, it's generally not handled in the office. It's handled through some 800 number with a third-party company. And things tend to go wrong, and now all of a sudden the client's upset with them that they're asking him from the right documentation, and the financial advisor doesn't know how to set expectations like we do with regard to documentation that's going to be needed, and now they've blown up the whole relationship, and the client's upset. So the advisor does not want to risk that. So I find it's a very low level. Those that do it in-house, typically they're doing it in-house in products that we as mortgage people don't have access to. Generally, it's much larger loans based on assets under management. It might be non-QM, such as IO loans and things like that. So it's not very common that they're offering them a 30-year fixed. Those that are owned by banks, once in a while there's a very strong product offering, and that's okay. But I have a number of advisors that can have mortgage options internally and still come to me the large majority of the time. So I wouldn't dismiss those at all. It may not be where you want to start, but I absolutely would not dismiss those if you find a good one, and just ask them flat out. Are you doing mortgages, and if so, why? I spoke to somebody at Merrill Lynch actually yesterday who told me she has regular access to it. She rarely uses it. I showed her a mortgage coach for her client. She had never seen it before. She said, this is so much better than what I have. I'd like to be able to call you when I need this. And I said, great. So I think that you should not let that stop you by any means. Dave, I just want to touch, because I know you've mentioned CPAs a few times. I just want to say I believe that CPAs are an entirely different referral source than financial planners. I do believe that they would appreciate these case studies and the technical piece of it, but I think that they're not the same approach as advisors and not as potentially as good of a source, just because they're less on the sales and the client acquisition side, and they're more on the technical side, which just makes it a little more difficult to approach and sell them on these concepts. So good idea to go after them if you want, if you have some stuff for them, but I would not take the same exact approach that I take with advisors as going after CPAs.
Okay. So one thing, let's make sure we address it, the whole referral piece, because like I had, let's just say over 100 CPAs or financial planners. So I was always, look, it's not about the referrals I'm going to give you. It's about the service and the value I'm going to bring to your clients. And every time you refer someone to me, because of the way that I'm delivering value and insight, you're going to get more referrals. You're going to get more referrals from them, and they're going to be a better investor with you because my advice aligns with you. How are you addressing that? When that comes up, and how often does that come up?
It comes up a decent amount at the beginning. Not for the younger advisors, the newer advisors that are really looking for business development, it'll come up. A lot of people think that that's a non-starter and there's no way around it. I have found that that's absolutely not the case. What I say to the advisors is, I am absolutely going to help you develop new business, and I talk to them about how they get paid, and they tell me, how do you get paid? Well, I get paid by assets under management. Okay, so if that's the case, does that mean that if I can help you develop more assets under management, you'll get increased comp, and that'll be what you're looking for? Because you may say you're looking for new clients, but what does new clients mean? New clients means more revenue. So I'm going to help you create revenue, and I'm going to do that by freeing up cash flow for you to invest, by protecting and preserving existing assets that are already under management that don't get liquidated for other reasons. So I'm going to add value to your practice and help you create new clients and new revenue by getting more out of the existing client base you have. And quite frankly, you need me, right? If you just if your client calls you for a mortgage and they call you because they're your advisor and you're a holistic advisor, you cover everything, and they say, I need a mortgage, Bob, where do I go? And you say, call your bank. Well, that's a pretty dangerous move because you're risking cross-selling opportunities off the 1003. Some of these very large banks right now, those loan officers share that information internally with the other advisors and the other departments in there, and they may say, hey, we see you have a big 401k, or we see you have a lot of money under management here. Why don't you let one of our wealth planning guys take a look at that? So first of all, that's a risky move. Second of all, you're out of the loop. You don't know what's going on at any given time. They may not be recommending a mortgage that properly fits into the financial plan that you've outlined, and you're not brought into that conversation. So just like you need the CPA and the estate planner, I want to be part of that team, and as part of it, I'm going to make sure that you're in the loop on the options, and we're going to make sure that the options fit into the financial plan, and we're going to make sure we deliver a great client experience, and they'll have you to thank for that. And hopefully, while we're doing that, we're going to free up some cash flow for you to manage as well moving forward. And then finally, I do tell them about my databasing system, and I imagine a lot of the loan officers on the call have a CRM, and they're very good at databasing. I explain that how over time, since I ask every client for referrals and I survey every client, when they refer new people to me, that will, of course, go back to the advisor. So over time, we'll build databases together.
Right on. So by the way, guys, I'm getting lots of questions about scripts. Know that in the auto referral, while it's dated, it's 15 years old, there are some scripts. There are some very specific things in that document. And then, of course, this call is being recorded, so you can re-listen to this call. If you do have a specific script or question you want me to ask Craig over the next 10 minutes, throw it in here, and I will try to, record something for you and have a script. Craig, let's do this. I want to make sure everybody knows how you're using Edge, because while you're not driving the mobile conversation in their office, which, by the way, everybody, you see how I'm doing it right now, where you can tell someone a story. This is one of Craig's move up analysis. You can, show, in this case, cost over 84 months. You can drill down into the details, graphically. And again, it's swipe in Zoom. You can get into the long-term difference in value from different loan programs. And whether you're sharing a strategy or you're telling a story, you can tell and show at the same time. And then, of course, where I think that there's just, huge value is you can click share, and literally while you're talking to that financial advisor, you can text it to them. Hey, let me make sure that you have this on your mobile device, and from, every now and then, I'm going to forward you a strategy that's relevant, or when you refer a client to me, I'm going to make sure you're in the loop. So, I can make sure that when I email this to the family, assuming I have their permission, I can also forward it to you, and you can use this app to be in the loop. So I would advocate that while you're having that conversation for 3 to 5 minutes, you walk them through a mobile story or strategy, and you make them download the app. Now, Craig, I know part of your approach is that you'll meet with people, then you'll send them videos, and then you also use Edge Live. I want to make sure everybody knows how to do that. So could you walk through your process? And as Craig is walking through his process, I'm going to have my app follow along. One quick note to everybody. I want to make sure that, when you're on this page of the Mortgage Coach app, when you see this guy up here in the left-hand corner, this profile, if you click on that, it'll take you into the back end of Mortgage Coach. So I just want to make sure everybody knew how to get where I'm at in the mobile app. And then when Craig is either talking about video, I'll show it, or when he's talking about Edge Live, I'll drive an Edge Live experience. Go ahead, Greg, if you could walk everybody through, or explain what you do, and I'll move my mortgage app to follow along.
Sure. So transitioning away from advisors for a second, talking about how I sell to clients, most of my sales are on the phone. For many years, I did meet face-to-face with a lot of clients. I don't typically do that as much anymore. We build out an edge. We have a specified time that we're going to talk to the client by phone. My team sends the link ahead of time to the client, and then I jump on the call and I go through the options using Edge Live. And what I really love about this is that, you might be sending a nice spreadsheet that you put together, or maybe some good faith estimates, or a preliminary financing worksheet, or something like that, but you don't really know what they're looking at when you talk to them. When they're doing that, you're trying to tell them, well, no, look at this line, or look at that line. But by sending them the link and having them click on it and going live with them, I'm able to make sure that I have their attention and to ensure that they're looking at what I'm talking about. So I'll highlight a column, for example, as soon as we get on the phone, and I'll say, okay, are you looking at the column that says this, and yes or no, and I'll ask them even for a number there. What do you see for the credit report number, or whatever it is? And so now I know they're looking in the right place. And then from there, I can navigate the screen. So I could go through each option, and I could show them what the payment's going to be, and I could show them a payment breakdown, what it's going to look like. I could show them why the cash to close is the way it is by getting into the closing cost screen and the fee details, so I can ask their questions, answer their questions as they go. A lot of you might experience some frustration that I used to have a lot, which was every time I got off the phone with someone, they'd say, that was really great, Craig. Can you send me a summary of that, or can you send me some detail on it? And you just created so much work for yourself when you do that. It's just not an effective way to do it. Now you're counting on them to go back and read what you wrote, and did you write it correctly? So this really allows them to see it right there on the screen. And what I do as a best practice generally after the call is once we're done with the call, and by the way, I do this certainly if both decision makers weren't on the phone. I'm sure you guys experience this a lot, where one spouse might have told the other spouse to go do all the legwork, and then that spouse who's not doing the legwork is the one that's going to review everything and decide who to use, which is obviously a frustrating way to have to sell into something. So what I do is after the call, I get off the call and I use the video function, and I call and I record and I say, hey Dave, it's Craig. It was really great to speak with you. I know that you're going to be speaking with Nancy later and going over some of these things. I wanted to kind of go through what we talked about in our report today, and cover what we discussed. So in column 1, we talked about this, and option 2 is this, and option 3 is this, and here's why I think this option is better than that option, and here's some things you should consider on this and that. And remember, if you want to see the breakdown of the payments, here's where they are, and here's some other things that I did to make sure you understand. Here's a breakdown of the fees broken down to the dollar, and here's where you would see those here. So if there's any other questions, please do let me know, and so on. And what I find is that typically later that evening, the link will be clicked on again and watched. And one of the great things about Edge, for those of you that don't use it, is that whenever they click on the link to watch the presentation, look at the presentation or watch a video you recorded, you receive a notification. So you don't want to be creepy and follow up 30 seconds later, but it's a good way to know that, okay, maybe the next morning or later in the day, you could follow on up and see if they had any questions on it. It also presents yourself very professionally to record the video and send them the Edge. And it's something that I very commonly do for the financial advisors. So if an advisor refers me a client, after I get off the conversation with the client where we go through all the numbers and stuff, I'll often record a video and send that to the advisor. So say, thanks so much for referring Bob and Jane. I just went through these options with them. Here you go. And if I'm not really confident in exactly the options that the advisor may or may not recommend, I'll call the advisor ahead of time to say, hey, here are the options that I'm going to present. So you never, just best practice, you never want to contradict the advice the advisor is given without speaking to them. If you disagree with what they may be telling them, then pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking and why, and make sure everybody's on the same page before you go and say, no, you shouldn't do that, you should do this.
All right, so couple quick reviews. Want to make sure everybody knows, one, how to get to the Mortgage Coach app and how to use it. You're meeting with people, you're driving the Mortgage Coach experience. Post-meeting, you can click on this guy right here in the upper left-hand corner. That takes you into the Mortgage Coach app. To drive Edge live, you click on live, and to create a video, you click on video. To review the report, like if you want to review the report to tell a story when you're out live with a client, you can pull it up and view the report. Now, hey, Craig, Jim had mentioned, I thought you had already gone through all your tools. Are there any tools that you didn't mention in today's call yet? I want to make sure that we unpack that.
Sure. Getting credentialed, we talk about mailing mortgage-specific items. We talked about teaching classes. We talked about that, using great software, and being able to speak intelligently about rate movements. We did not talk about that. That's why I think Rate Watch is obviously nice, part of a feature on Mortgage Coach, and that can certainly help you in being able to understand what's going on with rates. That's a pretty critical one, just because advisors will ask you during the course of the conversation, what do you think is going to happen with rates? And look, you don't need to be the expert on that, but obviously you want to have some understanding of long-term trends and terminology and what's going on, and what are the actual financial instruments that affect mortgage rates, and when is the Fed meeting next, and those types of general concepts. And you probably have those already if you're in the business at all, but being able to pull this up with the advisor and say, hey, here are some tools that I use, and show them right on your phone to make sure that I'm tracking rates correctly and understanding trends. This is right there on your mobile phone, and you can pull this up and share it with them. So that is an important tool to have as well.
Yeah, and the beauty here, guys, you can not only tell them, you can show them. And then again, you want to get in that relationship where you can share it. You can click the share button and say, look, I've got my pulse on the market, long-term, short-term, and if you ever have a question, let me know, and I'll either text this or email to you. By the way, what would you prefer, text or email? Boom, you've just now found out how they want to be communicated with. So I want to make sure everybody knows, in the handout section of GoToMeeting, there is the art of referrals. There's all of Craig's slides from today's call. Plus, we added the Mortgage Coach scripts, and we added our calendar for all of our events for the rest of the month. So Craig, I feel like we've unpacked all of the things in your slides. I do know there was this last slide. I don't know if we went through this or not. We've only got a few minutes left, but is there anything else you want to share with everybody?
These are my favorite ones. So if the why at the beginning wasn't compelling for you, this is the real why right here. So people pay their financial advisor. Think about that. They don't really pay their realtor on the buy side. The seller pays them. People are paying their financial advisor for their advice. So there's a greater tendency to listen to what the advisor tells them to do, which is really great. Keep in mind also, when we talk about rate shoppers, everybody knows about rate shoppers, and studies show that only 15% of people on the market really make the decision exclusively based on rate and cost. People ask about rate and cost because they don't know what else to be asking. Most rate shoppers, that personality profile of a rate shopper is the same person that's going to use Scottrade or Ameritrade or whatever the lowest cost thing to manage their trading is, maybe Schwab or whatever else is. Those people are rate shoppers, and generally they don't have financial advisors because they don't value paying for that advice like they would pay you, the advisor. So what I'm trying to tell you is most financial advisors don't refer rate shoppers because that's not who their clients are. These are people that value advice, so that's really good referrals from the advisors. Two, financial advisors don't give out 3 names. They just don't. Somebody calls and says, I need a mortgage. They say, this is my guy. Call this guy. He's really good. And so they don't give out 3 names. They give out 1, yours, and they do it with an endorsement as to why their client should work with you. So it's a very different call when you get that inbound referral. My financial advisor is so-and-so. He says I should call you for my mortgage. That's a totally different starting point on a call. And then finally, this is my favorite. You saw this already here. Financial advisors don't work weekends. They really value their time away from the office, and you're never going to get a call on a Sunday at 2 in the afternoon that says, I need you to call the Joneses right now about their mortgage. It's just not going to happen. So they don't work weekends, and this kind of comes back to what I told you at the very top. It is a lifestyle decision. You'll find that you'll have much more control over your schedule during the course of the week. You'll be able to work proactively more than reactively if this is your primary source of business.
Well, I mean, this has been a fantastic call. Very strategic, very tactical, aligns with the Mortgage Coach vision. Hopefully everybody on this call is just going to raise the bar to stop delivering fee worksheets, start giving every family a comparison, talk about the cost over time, show the cost over time, make sure your clients know how to become debt-free faster, make sure you're delivering a video, whether you do it at the front end or as Craig does it, he does it after he meets with them so that they have something to socialize with the other stakeholders. Make sure that when you're out in the field and you're meeting with financial professionals and real estate professionals, you're driving that mobile conversation and get really clear on what is your why. Also want to push forward, if anybody missed the first part of this call, I want to remind everybody that next week we have the #1 realtor in America as our guest, Ken DeLeon. So please don't be late to that call. Share it with others in your office. Bring realtors to that call. And as Craig, I'm going to give you 1 last minute to share any takeaways. While you're doing that, I'm going to push a poll. Let us know what you thought of today's call on a scale of good to great. If you are a guest and not a mortgage coach today and you want to learn more about what it is to be a mortgage coach, get a demo of what we do, check the last option. I'd like to get a demo. So Craig, last minute of wisdom. Any thoughts or comments?
This is a great way to build your mortgage practice long term, and it takes a little more work and a little more energy and a little more homework, but the dividends that you get from it will be exponential for that effort up front.
Love it. Everybody have a fantastic week. I hope this call was great. Do want to remind you that all the resources from this call are in either the handout section of GoToMeeting. Also, we put links to all the Simon Sinek videos and the Bill Hart video in the chat. And if you need more and you didn't get it, just email support@mortgagecoach.com. We'll be there for you. And my last reminder is every Thursday at 9 o'clock, we're there to teach and train you tactically on how to use our solutions. So if you don't know what to do or how to do it, come to our Tuesday call. And every single day of the week, we're doing Mortgage Coach University. So just a reminder, that schedule has been emailed out to you. And you can see what we're training on each and every day of the week. Have a fantastic week, everyone. And Craig, I can't thank you enough for the prep on this call and for the value that you delivered over the past hour.
Thanks, Dave.
Take care, everybody.